Good morning, Opening Pathways viewers. This is Tom LeNoble. It is great to be with you again. And have I got a treat today? This is a new friend to me, and I'm just so wonderful about the connection we've created. Debbi Sluys, she owns her own podcast, her own business, Dare to Declare. She's a professional speaker, all things that you know I love. And I want to share with you that Debbi has this business about vision boards, and we're going to talk about it today, that breaks any mold that you're thinking about, any structure of knowing you have about a vision board. You're going to learn something new today. Debbi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, I am really excited to dive into this conversation with you. We always have the most engaging and beautiful conversations.
I look forward to every one of them, and I'm hoping that we do more and more over time. Here's what I want to start with. I'd love for you to share with the viewers a little bit about your business, but what I really want you to share is what sparked your idea to start it.
Well, I believe we only move for two reasons because we no longer tolerate where we're at, so pain. And the other is that we have a glimmer of hope and so pleasure. So, pain or pleasure, the two reasons. And for me, I was really focused in on the pain in that I had numerous signs that were telling me that you get to grow and be bigger than where you currently are at. But I didn't have direction yet. I didn't know where I was going, but I just knew my health. I had a little mini stroke that happened at work where half my face fell during a meeting with my employees. And I was just feeling overwhelmed. I was resorting to alcohol to numb the pain at night, just having, too many glasses of wine, feeling a bit hungover every day at work. It just was not a good situation. And so for those reasons, I started to look, thankfully, of what's next and what could be possible. And so I was speaking even then in my role. So I spent 30 years in childcare. I was a not-for-profit director of a multi-site organization. I led a team of about 75 employees. We had served about 450 children daily from infant up to school age. And I loved it. We were one of the best in the province. And because we introduced a new way of being with children, which was play-based learning, which new for Canada, new for Ontario, where I live, I started, it radically changed our organization, changed the culture. And I started doing public speaking around the results that we were seeing with children, with my employees. We had lower turnover with my employees. They were happier. The parents were engaged. It was just a beautiful culture that had developed. And so I started to share the story, and that storytelling, of course, the best speaking is always about stories. So I naturally started to do public speaking, and then realizing, I wonder what else I could do that would involve making a bigger impact for more people, especially those that I knew were caring for others, particularly with children. So that's where I kind of started, was with educators. And then I went online. Social media was just, this is going back about 8 years ago. So I was just getting really into Facebook and so forth. And found Jack Canfield. So Jack Canfield's work on YouTube, actually. And I listened and consumed every one of his videos. I thought he was the most engaging gentleman, and so knowledgeable, so wise. And so his message was so simple and it made so much sense. And it connected to what I was doing with children, which was connected to the brain. So I love the neuroscience behind it because I've always been curious around how children's brains develop. And we know that the first 5 years are crucial to their development. And then also this idea of playfulness around, especially the vision board piece. So I consider Jack Canfield, you called me the master, I consider him the godfather of vision boards.
Yes, yes. And how we met. Viewers, Debbi and I were at a conference with Jack called Build to Success, one of his, maybe his last, because he's retiring from that. And not only was it an incredible experience, but I got to meet people like Debbi. There's something about being in a room of like-minded people, not that we think exactly alike, but that have a space that we're open to some of these things that we're talking about today. Debbi, tell me this. When were you on this journey with your business and you knew this was your path? What was that moment?
Well, I've had lots of moments where I doubted it was my path, that's for sure. And I think that's just maybe the journey of the entrepreneur. Uh, and there have been signs. There have definitely been signs where this is where you're supposed to be. One of the first ones was when I gave my notice to my board of directors. So I actually was still in my role as a childcare director for 2 years and did vision boards as sort of a side hustle. So more as a hobby, I was just honing my craft. And then when I did decide to leave and give my board of directors notice, that was January 2020. And so you can see probably the punchline is that March 2020, the world shut down, and suddenly I had the way that I had been earning revenue, making an impact, which was in-person vision board workshops, was no longer available. And I actually had a studio, which I had built on my husband's with his help on the second floor of his warehouse. And so that was a big turning point where I had a choice to either go back to my old job and ask my board of directors, like, hey, I don't know what I was thinking, but can I please have my job back or some kind of job here in the organization? Or I had a choice to say, this is my purpose. This is my destiny. I'm going for it. And so you and I both know the equation E plus R equals O, which is event plus your response equals your outcome. And so the event was the pandemic. The outcome was really up to me. Like some people just buried their head, just took the government subsidies and just kind of closed down their business and sort of waited out the storm. And then others, like me, said, I wonder what else is here. I wonder what I can create. And so what I did was I was in a mastermind, which Jack told me already before, like get into a mastermind. And so that was really helpful. And I also hired a coach. And so that coach instructed me to do an online workshop. And so I had never, like here, you and I are on Zoom, like it's nobody's business. We're in different time zones where, but I hadn't really done that in before 2020, not regularly. And I created a little power word workshop. It's a singular workshop, like a little workshop, 90 minutes based on a single word, because that word for me had been generous in January 2020. I decided my word, like I had been doing since 2015, that I was going to choose a word for my year. And that single word of generous was getting me through with so much grace during this period of exiting, cleaning up 3 offices, 30 years of, entwined, like as though the business was mine, hiring my successor, dealing with the pandemic, the health unit was changing the regulations. And I would take a deep breath and I would say, what would my most generous self do? And so I showed up as her in every decision, in every situation where I felt like I was out of control. And I created that power word workshop, and I attracted 65 people to it, and I created 10 paying clients from it. And I felt like that was a direct message from the Lord going, Deb, you're exactly where you're supposed to
Right where you
be.
need to be.
Keep going. And so that was a really beautiful, direct answer I felt to, and validation that yes, you are to leave, you are to exit, which I did. And then, yeah, there's been other signs along the way, but that one was really clear
I
at the
love
early.
this.
Yeah.
Well, Debbie, we're going to have a podcast too. I can feel it coming on because I too have a word of the year and a whole process I do to find it, and a year in process that I've built a workshop around. And you and I are going to share these kind of things that aren't about what we usually talk about in this podcast. I can see that coming. So I want to ask you this question. I want to go back. What I find is those of us that are doing things that we really are passionate about, we sort of found what we're supposed to be doing in this life. There were early role models that influenced it. Who was that for you?
Mm. I would say they were school teachers of mine. Uh, I think his name was Mr. Elginsa, and he was in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So my dad was studying to be a pastor. He went to Calvin College in Grand Rapids, and so I was there. I'm Canadian, but we lived there while he was studying, and so that was in grade 4. And he made me feel like I was funny. He made me feel like I was smart, and that I had so much potential. And that was like so important in those early days for my self-esteem and just to be able to really feel seen. Yeah, I would definitely say
I
he was
love that.
in my life. Yeah.
What personal values have guided you from the start?
So as a little girl, my mom shares stories about how even in the neighborhood, so we lived in Grand Rapids, and I was a little entrepreneur even back then. And so I would set up the backyard like a little fair and have rides, and I would have games and prizes. And so my mom, we didn't have much money. My dad was a student going to, like I said, seminary, and then my mom was a homemaker, so we didn't have much money. Mom made our clothes and so forth, but she bought me pencils. I remember like in nowadays, if you say the dollar store kind of little trinkets that I could give out as prizes. And I charged the kids like a couple of pennies to come into our backyard, and they loved it. The kids would all line up and come, and I would be so I have talking about balance. I guess I love this idea of being an entrepreneur. I also love gathering people. I love creating events and fun and having fun, and so that's been a really big part of my values in childhood is play, fun, but also as an entrepreneur, yeah, to and
I
then helping my family out. So it wasn't the money. I don't even remember like being like ooh hoarding my money in my piggy bank. In fact, I remember my mom giving me money one time. Do you remember school bazaars? Did you ever?
Yes, yes, I do know what school was in. Absolutely.
Yeah, so there would be games rooms for the kids. There'd be like a farmer's market kind of idea in like one of the other classrooms. And I remember taking my money that was meant for me. My parents had given it to me to buy candy or to go play a game. And I went to the farmer's market and I bought radishes. And I don't know why I bought radishes, if they were just pretty to me or whatever, but I was so proud that I had taken my quarter and I had bought radishes and I could contribute to the family. And I gave them to my mom all proudly, like, here, here's some radishes. And so there's this gift giving definitely, I think, has been my love language for sure.
If someone was watching you from back then, what would surprise them most about you today?
Back then, today. I am pretty much the same as I was as a little girl. I was sparkly, I was lively. Um, I think that they would probably be surprised about my accomplishments because perhaps I was a little hyper. And so the fact that I've been able to focus and be successful in business and be able to take all of those superpowers, but be able to streamline them and be focused and be successful, I think that that would probably surprise them. But maybe not. Maybe people saw that already in me.
Yes, yes,
Those that were
interesting.
paying attention. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. I know we want to know. If you could go back to day one, would you do it all the same from your business, or would you do something differently now that you're here?
Hmm. I don't I don't think I would do anything different. I needed to learn all the lessons along the way. And those have been so important because now I train trainers. So it's like if you're gifted an inheritance, it's like it's wonderful to have the money, to have the outcome, to have the success, but then it may be that there isn't the same emotion attached to it. There isn't the same way to steward the money. So in this case, I can share all of what not to do with my graduates and with my clients. And one of the things I tell my students and my clients is you know, start an email list. Like that's like just for example, a very simple thing. And I overlooked that in the beginning. I was more about being on social media and contacting people and growing more of the vanity metrics versus looking at like the real connection, which would be in-person connections, which is another one that I say get in person, connect in person. There's nothing like it, just like you and I met, but then also growing your email list. So yeah, so I think no, I wouldn't change anything. It's like all of those pieces, I can look back now and pull the thread and see how they
I
scaffolded
love
me
this.
exactly where I'm at now.
Yes, yes. Plus, there are no do-overs, so it all is part of what made you who you are today. Such a
Right.
believer in that. Tell me this. What did the early days in your business teach you about trust?
Well, one of the challenges was when I decided to open my academy. So in like I said, I started my company, left, sorry, I started in 2018, left in 2020, and then in 2021, because I had been online now offering vision boards by Zoom, my colleagues, I went into another coaching program after that one I was telling you about. I went to another high level coaching program, which included a lot of Europeans. And people were reflecting back to me, Deb, no one is doing vision boards like you. And I said, really? That can't be true. So I researched, like the imposter syndrome was alive and well. And I was really thinking there's got to be someone else doing this, and there wasn't. And so then I felt this nudge from God, like this tap tap on my shoulder again to go, okay, it's time to level up. But what happened around this idea of trust, I became very afraid that someone was going to steal what I had already accomplished. What if someone just takes my work and makes it their own and runs away with my company? So that was a real challenge and struggle that I needed to do internally, was to also trust the next level. And I see that within my clients too. Like, I sometimes, it's all about failure, but I see that they're more afraid of success than failure. We fail all the time, but success comes more in maybe, less frequent increments. And so that's, I was afraid of the success. I was afraid of especially someone taking away what I had already built. And so
Yes.
hanging on tight to that versus surrendering that also to God, to say, no, I trust that everything's for my good. I'm going to be smart. I'm going to, get my name. And it just finally came through. It took about 5 years to get trademarked, get everything, be smart about it. And I get to also gift and give this away, to give everything that I know. Like we were just talking about, all the lessons, all the templates, all the things, so that my graduates can be successful. And now we have just under 60 certified people in 5 different
Amazing.
countries using my proven process. And there's something like, I have one of my clients is in South Africa. She's a lawyer, and I got a message one time early on a Saturday morning, like about 7 a.m. So it'd be, I think 1 p.m. for her. And she said, Deb, help, help. I'm like, oh no. So what's going on? And she's like, what's the music that you use? And so I tend to use a certain YouTube. It's instrumental pop covers on the cello. There's something about the cello that's very soothing.
Beautiful, right?
Yeah. And so I'm like, the world is so small. It's so incredibly small. Here she is in a different culture, different country, and wanting to use the same music that I was going to be using that afternoon with my clients when I did a vision board. And just this beautiful tie together of within the world of the work. And so, yeah, it's just, my heart is so full when that happens.
I love this. I love this. Viewers, don't worry. We're going to tell you about Debbie's vision board process later. Just be patient out there. Debbie, how do you decide when to pivot or push through?
Hmm. It, remember I said about pain and pleasure? And so my default is to push through. I am a hustler. I'm a high achiever. And so I need to uh, check that. And so and now I can do it more quickly because I can feel the resistance. I can feel it in my body. So to answer your question, I can feel it I'm forcing. And yeah, so I'm forcing something through. And
Uh,
so yeah. And so then I realized that I need to check that, check in with my mastermind, that they also are really helpful to support me to distinguish between the two and to get back into flow for sure.
have you ever said no to growth because it wasn't aligned?
Hmm. Yes. Uh, I am much more discreet now in my collaborations and partnerships. And so I learned that the hard way, and that what looked like a gift was in fact me feeling that I needed partnership or collaboration because I wasn't my own self-image wasn't strong enough to say, I got this. I got this on my own. Where so I would partner with a coaching company, for example, and then would fall apart within a year. And because it wasn't from a good source, it was from my side. And I think from theirs too, it was more of a scarcity kind of source versus it being a growth. So even though it was disguised as growth, it truly wasn't going to support both of us to grow. I don't know if I'm talking in too much mystery kind
No,
of.
no, no, no.
Yeah. So
Okay, good.
so now I have and yeah, I don't have as many partnerships. Again, I'm very discreet in who and how I'm going to partner. Um, and just look at the growth opportunities and looking at the bigger picture. So always going back to the work that I do is like I use my own work with being a visionary. So and my vision board is like, does this fit on my vision board? Like it just might be this shiny
Interesting.
yeah.
A lot of wisdom here today, Debbie. Thank you. What impact are you most proud of personally, not professionally? Of
Is it cliche to say my children?
course not.
Okay. So I have four children, two boys, two girls. My son is going to be 35. My daughters are twins and they're 31. And then my youngest, he's 22 today. It's his birthday. And so um, I would say that being a parent and mothering them, and one of my joys is that they come every Sunday, all four of my children, as well as my three grandchildren, to have lunch with us at our house. And the fact that my children want to come, they don't have to
You.
come, is yeah, it makes me emotional. Like I'm so grateful. So that to me says, I did a lot of things, like I messed up a lot as a parent. I mean, you just do the best you can. I was going to say there's no manual. There are lots of manuals, but you got to figure it out. I'm an early child educator. I have an expertise in childcare. However, being a parent, there's so many different things you're juggling. And so I did the best I could with what I had. And then when I look at the grace, the fact that my children want to be with us, they want a vacation with us. We're all going on vacation next summer. We're renting like a bunch of cottages together here in Ontario. I feel so grateful and blessed.
I love this. Happy birthday to your son. Please know that what you just shared that happens for you is a reflection of who you are and who you've been as a parent.
Thank you.
Yes. How do you define success beyond metrics?
Well, I'll tell you what I used to think. I used to believe success had to do with your bank account. And again, that has to do with metrics and you can measure it. And as I work with like thousands of people and clients to create their vision board, what comes out for most people when we filter is contentment. And content, I always believed that was a bit beige. Like it just felt kind of blah. Like, is that exciting? Is that adventurous? Is that, something that is repeatable, is like, attractive? Yes, that is ultimately what people are seeking is contentment, which envelopes peace, love. It envelopes all the other things, gratitude, that if you could wake up every day at your core feeling content, beautiful, beautiful for your head.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
I love this idea of contentment. That's a special gift you gave us today. Thank you so much. How do you model your values during moments of pressure and the intensity we have in our business sometimes? How does Debbie stay grounded in your values when you have those moments?
Well, I surround myself with amazing people. So my daughter started working for me full time last February, and I'm very blessed. Again, she's on the other side of this door, so she physically is here. And so uh, I give her permission to remind me of my values, to remind me, and the way that I embody them very physically is, as I said earlier, about this power word. And so I can share my word for the year this year. And again, this may feel a bit stretchy for some people, but is the idea of obedience. Obedient. I am obedient. And like, if you would have told me that 10 years ago that that would be my word, I would have felt like I was choking. And yet, what I see is there's liberty within this idea of obedience and discipline, to be discipled, to be led, to have focus. So, obedient to God's laws, obedient to God's will for my life, to my purpose. And so, this power word helps me self regulate, where, and it's a term that we use with childcare. Like if you see toddlers having a complete meltdown in Walmart, they are not self-regulated, right? Like they are like, I want what I want, what I want, and I'm going to throw myself to the floor and I'm going to scream. Well, Mel Robbins in her book, the Let Them theory, she actually says most of us are walking around with 8-year-old brains. And so very few of us actually have the ability to self-regulate because we are like an internal thermostat, hot, cold, but where we want to be is that beautiful temperature of say 70, 72 degrees. And so this word obedience helps me set my internal thermostat so that I don't get too hot, don't get too cold, which meaning fight, flight, or freeze. And so that I decide, I make an intentional choice that when a situation happens, and I had this recently where we talked about trust, and I had where someone actually had used my material without my permission, and so I was feeling anger, I was feeling taken advantage of, and so I was really triggered, and I was ready to retaliate, like online, like very frustrated, which isn't the highest version of me at all. And so thankfully my daughter again said, Mom, do you want to take a breath? And I was so appreciative. I was like,
I
and
love
that's
that.
what I needed, that breath. And then I looked and I have my word right here sitting. This is my reason. I have it right here. Got to refocus and say, okay, so what would the most obedient version of me? How would she respond to this? And I got to do that with so much grace.
I love
So this is what I do.
back to this word. I have this bowl on my desk that I keep things from my life that have meant something very special to me. And what I keep in this bowl, along with things like, I have this card here that meant something really special to me, but I keep my past words of the year in this bowl. So the current one is in front of me on my desk all the time, but I keep these because every now and then I want to come back and reflect on what I had for that year and what that year brought to me as part of my year in practice of looking back. So I love this synergy. We're going to do something more with this word of the day, you and I, Debbie. I feel it coming. In the meantime, I want to know this. What is your boldest vision for your business in the next 5 years?
My boldest vision. So I would have said to you a few months ago to host an international conference, but I'm doing that. And so in the next 5 years, I really, I will grow the academy to where there will be others who have their own academies. So it's not just me, but then there are others, maybe perhaps within the real estate, who now can license people, can certify people within the real estate or within the wedding planning, or maybe within cultures like the indigenous culture. And so they're then going to be like me, training others to be trainers. So I just see it the next level up with me being able to do that. So that is my biggest, boldest vision. It feels really scary. I don't know the how. And when I don't know the how, that means that I definitely should do it.
Yes, yes. Viewers, I hope you're listening to this. In fact, Debbie and I were talking earlier about manifesting, and another thing we're going to have to talk about at some time with on this podcast or somewhere is this idea of putting it out there, admitting that we're not sure about how that might happen, but knowing that it is true and being willing to release timing, what it looks like, just know that that's there. It's the key to the beginning of manifesting. Debbie, I love that you shared that with us today. So tell me this. Um, what are you most excited about in our culture today? What's lighting you up that's going on in culture right now?
Well, I think I know there is a lot of political strife. There is a lot of conversation happening that feels polarized. And what I'm excited about is that it's woken us up out of this passive way of being, that we are recognizing that we need to be aware, self-aware, and what are our beliefs, and how important it is to care for one another and to demonstrate kindness, whatever your political affiliation is, whatever your religion is, and that ultimately we get back to humanity. And I think even like with AI and there's so many incredible things that are happening so fast, but really making us look back at what is it to be human, and how can we make a stronger connection with one another. I'm really excited about this awakening to self and to connection and to one another.
Yes, it's so true. We could use a little more kindness. I have a t-shirt that we've probably all seen it by now, but it says humankind, and then little letters underneath it says be both, be human and kind, what we need in this world. Yes. What are you most hopeful about in our world today?
Hmm. Well, as a Christian, I'm hopeful that there will be a turning back to faith, and that people will also um, be like spiritual, will, yeah, like I said, connect with one another, but also connect to God. And so I'm hopeful for that as well.
Good, good, good. Yes, that connection to something that clearly there's something bigger, bigger, broader, more, whatever way you express it, connect with something for sure. God, universe, whatever, love, whatever label you want to give, but make that connection is so important. Yes, I agree with you on that. So I have one more question for you before I want you to share about this vision board process with the viewers. If your younger self were watching this podcast, what would you tell her?
I would say to stay sparkly, to meaning like be outgoing, and know that um, well, hmm, she was a little girl who came out of sexual abuse as a little one, and so that impacted the way that she viewed men, that the way that I dated, like so many like relationships, and the way that I was as a teenager. And so I just want to surround her with love, and that she sees herself as worthy and loved. And also I would love for her to also see God, the Father, as the perfect Father. And so that he is the epitome of the male figure, and that you're never too much, you're never annoying, and that he sees you and all the gifts that you have to share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for your vulnerability. I assure you, you've touched someone today, or maybe many someones. So, Debbie, tell us about your business, about the vision board process, and how we can find you.
All right. Well, let me start with the easiest touch point, which is my magazine. So I actually have a magazine because one of the things that people say why they do not create a vision board is because, well, I can't find magazines, or magazines are expensive, or I don't know where to start. And so I've solved that with creating my own magazine. Now, I say magazine, but it doesn't have any articles in it. It's actually more like a book of images. And the images have been curated based on my thousands of clients. So you want to have images that represent what it is that you want. So you want to get really clear on what do you want. And so I actually do an exercise within my workshop. It's actually from Canfield, where people sit knee to knee, eye to eye, and you set a timer, maybe 1, 2 minutes. And one person asks the other person, what do you want? And just keep repeating the question, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And it's like, when somebody says, how are you? And you say, fine. And then they look at you again and go, no, really, how are you? And then it's like pops out. It's right there. And so that's what happens with this exercise, is that people say, I don't know what I want. But with this timed exercise, it comes out rather quickly. And so finding out what do you want, getting clear on that, and putting on the board what you want versus what you don't want. Because this, as Tom will say, he knows, like, you be careful what you wish for, because you're going to get it. So words matter. So you want to put on the board what it is that you want, not what you don't want. And let's see. I also would say not to make it a collage, because heaven's first law is order. So if you think about how the world was created, there's a sense of order, there's seasons, there's so much beauty in the natural world. And so you want to emulate that on your board, and that you don't want it to be a collage where the images are overlapping. You want to have lots, and you want to have a variety. And in fact, I give my clients 7 areas in their life to put images on the board about, but leave some space. So just like when you have a book and you read it and there's margins, the eye needs a place to rest. So you want to have each of the images have some white space around it. Another tip is put an image of yourself in the center or in a prominent place on the board, because it helps to anchor, to ground all the images that you've chosen. Because the vision board is an expression of your self-image. It's the higher version of yourself. So if you can't imagine yourself in or part of each of the images, then they don't belong on your board. You need to have that emotional connection to you, because you are the one in the car. You are the one in the beautiful home. You are the one on this vacation. You are the one in that amazing relationship. So there needs to be that connection, or you won't promote the law of vibration, which is where you feel the connection in your body, because the law of vibration is actually what promotes the law of attraction and the manifestation. So those are some of my tips. I would say make a physical board. People say to me, Deb, it's so much easier to do digital, but I'm not a proponent of digital. You access a different part of your brain when you actually have it in the hand. When it's in the hand, it's in the heart. And like Dr. Joe Dispenza says, what fires together, wires together. So when we have a thought, right, and a choice, then we are when we have a thought and a feeling, we actually create new pathways within our brain. And so that's neuroplasticity. And so, yeah, we want to activate. And so my process promotes the science, also the highest practices of creating an intentional vision board. My process is called decision vision. And so when you make decisions around what it is that you really want, that's how you're going to manifest it quickly.
Amazing. Debbie, how do we find you?
Oh, use my name, Debbie, with just an I, Debbi, Sluys, SLUYS.com. And that's my website there, and everything, my social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I'd love to connect with you. There's some freebies. There's a free e-guide. So yeah, check out my website, and I'd love to connect with you.
Yes, viewers, Debbie has so many offerings that are rich. And I'm just going to be vulnerable and share with you. Debbie asked me the question once when we met, had I ever done a vision board? And I let her know the first one I did when I had 6 months to live. And on that vision board was to ride my bike from San Francisco to LA, and I did it. So I've had vision boards since then, and Debbie has a very unique process that I encourage you to explore, even training people how to be train the trainer so they can then do it with other people, this gift that she's created. Debbi Sluys, thank you for being an Opening Pathways today.
Thank you for having me. These great questions. You touched my heart, deepened our friendship. So I appreciate you so much.
Wonderful. And to my viewers, this is Opening Pathways, and I'll see you next time.